Hi, it's Dave Michaels from Talking Points. We are in Zambia, Africa, not far from Victoria Falls. I'm with Barry Cooper, president of everything, right? President of NICE CX, all right?
NICE
as far as I'm concerned, that's everything that NICE does. Right. So we're at an a CX analyst conference, which means we're talking a lot about AI, obviously. And so one of the questions I think a lot of people are wondering is, can a CCaaS provider actually differentiate with AI today? Because there's so many different, you've heard the same story from so many providers. So how do you differentiate?
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, really high level. We've been doing AI for CX, AI purpose-built for CX, many years now. When we first came out with Enlighten, I think it was like 2017, our first kind of deployments with Enlighten. So the first differentiator is, rather than slideware, we actually have hundreds of customers and many advocates who can talk about the ROI they've got from our various AI solutions. This is number one. But I think the bigger thing is more strategic. And that is the fact that, similar to our strategy historically around CX1, which was coming with a platform rather than multiple point solutions, what we see amongst many players out there are AI point solutions.
Right.
Be it the very simple call summarization solution, or a co-pilot, or a standalone bot. These are point solutions. And again, I think the core differentiator for NICE is that we've put those AI services that enable those products into that platform. So we just launched CX1 Empower. It's rolling out now to our customers. It's the next generation of our platform, and all the work we did around AI, we've pulled all that great technology, all those AI services, and I could mention tons of those, into the platform. It means that our customers are able to use any of our applications that use those AI services in any place. So it's an AI platform solution rather than a bunch of AI point solutions.
So let's talk about those point solutions, because what we hear the most right now are basically, I'm going to call them two use cases.
Right.
Augmented agent and summarization. That's the big one. Summarization. Everything summarized.
Yep.
You've talked about more use cases here. So can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So the way that we look at that platform, an AI platform, we see three fundamental pillars of which AI applies. So first is the workflows that span automating customer service, from the initial touch point all the way to fulfillment in the middle or back office. And I'm not just talking about simple use cases like giving me generic information available on our website, but actually things that will trigger a number of steps that require different people, maybe things in the real world, to get done, and approvals, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing is applying AI into workflows, and I can explain what we mean by that in a separate thing. But then is the AI being applied to what the agent does in those workflows. Now, when I say agent, I mean both the AI agent and the human agent together. They're one. Each co-piloting the other. And again, I can talk about what I mean by that in a second.
Okay.
And the third part is that what's the fuel for AI, if you like, is the knowledge. It's the AI models that are embedded. It's the integrations that are out there, and all of the data that fuels that. So having all of that data and knowledge in a single place that can be managed with the right roles-based access.
So this is the meat right here. Let's double click on this a little more, because large language models are great at generic responses, and what you're talking about here is getting more customized private information. So explain that. Why does NICE have an advantage there?
So that's another good question, because again, there's other organizations that will standardize on one LLM, and maybe that's the right price, or it's where they have a relationship. And going back to what I mentioned about the new CX1 Empower architecture, one component of that is what we call the LLM hub, which allows us to plug in any number of LLMs depending on the use case. Now, different LLMs have got different uses depending on what you're trying to do. So an LLM that's involved in knowledge is very different from an LLM that's involved with, say, automation, or an LLM that's involved with something more technical than just knowledge. And so we're able to plug all those types of things in as well. And I think the other thing that's really important is what we do with LLMs. LLMs are only part of our solution. So for example, when we're building a prompt for, or you mentioned augmented agent support, and we're providing to that agent information, In that Empower architecture, there are other services that use. For example, one of the services is experience memory. So if we're dealing with you, Dave, you're a consumer that's called in, the first thing we're doing is we're looking at your contact history, we're looking at your derived sentiment. We know that you're a little bit upset about your last interaction.
A little bit upset.
Well, generally, probably you were probably a lot upset. And then we're looking at kind of, your likelihood to churn, your likelihood to be upsold.
Yep.
And as we build the prompts that we call the LLM for, and it's the right LLM for the job, that's the information we're including in it. So we're saying, build this prompt either for Copilot or for Autopilot, so augmented or automated service, that actually isn't a generic prompt, okay, that builds in the fact that you're a little bit upset, but you're likely to be able to be upsold at the moment. So that's going to be built into that solution. And that's a great differentiator rather than just doing a generic LLM.
So generic AI fueled by data to create
CX,
a customized experience.
Yes.
And when you talked about that earlier, you kept on using the term workflow.
Yes.
And our industry talks a lot more about users and sessions.
I know, yeah.
And so what are you hitting at there? What do you?
Yeah. So workflows are a big step change that come with the next generation of our platform, CX1 Empower. What do I mean by workflows? First of all, I mean the end-to-end processes from that initial intent or initial touch point all the way through to fulfillment. And that can be, and when I say that, everyone just assumes I'm talking about reactive, i.e. Dave's got a thing, he's reaching out. That can be reactive or proactive. It could be we determine that actually now is the best time to reach out to Dave to do this, or this workflow's got a problem and so we need to be proactive and reach out to Dave now. So first of all, it's that end-to-end process. And the beauty of this is AI is applied in a couple of ways. So first of all, we give our users end-to-end views of those workflows. Every workflow, maybe it's a patient registration workflow, maybe it's a workflow to do medicine refill, you name it. So there's an end-to-end view of that workflow. All those workflows, we can see how many instances of that workflow have run. We see both calculated metrics, like the number of times it's been run, the average duration of a workflow, and this can be something that's spanning multiple contacts. Okay, but the third thing we see is overlay to that all of the AI calculations. So like I mentioned before, we know what, for a given workflow, what's the average likelihood that a customer is going to churn based on that workflow? What's the average likelihood they have to going to call back because it wasn't resolved? Thousands of AI models. So that's one application. But the beauty is, and this is amazing, this is the stuff that's the massive breakthrough, is not only do we overlay those workflows with those kind of AI-derived calculations, no one's asking for those, but we use that in Empower for Empower to automatically recommend changes to workflows to improve them, to make those metrics higher.
Okay, so this is touching on something.
Yes.
When people are looking at upgrading to a new modern CCaaS or CX environment, they don't know where to start, right? And so the obvious place to start is their existing workflows and improving those because that's what they know.
Totally.
But then they end up with pretty much the same of what they had with newer software.
The wrong way
and so what you're describing here is a way of breaking that process. So how do customers start? Where do they?
So first of all, we'll work with that. We have, we're adding 1,000 customers every year. So and we've learned from that every
1,000 customers every year.
Yes. Which is crazy numbers, but we've learned from that scale and scope that actually there are so many different situations, there's so many different customer requirements, so many different approaches to that. So first of all, we're very flexible. And some customers do take the approach you say, which is just lift and shift what I have today and then let me fix it once I'm on the platform.
Right.
Other customers want to go, phase by phase potentially, and as they do each phase, optimize that particular one. So that's the first thing. But for example, if whatever situation, and it could be because it's part of a migration, or it could be because they're on the CX1 Empower platform and the way the workflow was first designed is not optimal, if, for example, a workflow includes 5 steps, and we're saying in step 5, it has a problem because something's not being done properly in step 1 or 2. What Empower will recommend, automatically, it will say, we're getting to step 5 without this prerequisite of 1 or 2 being due. Maybe the customer's not properly registered, those kind of things.
Okay.
So CX1 Empower will automatically recommend to add a step to proactively reach out to that consumer, maybe using their preferred channel, whatever that could be, and to say, right, go here to register, for example. And then Empower can actually deploy a bot, an AI or autopilot bot, trained on the actions of the best agents. So we're not asking our customers to build this bot based on guesswork or having a PhD. trained on what the best agents do to guide that consumer through that registration process to make sure it gets done. That's an example of an updated workflow where we'll change, the system will automatically change the flow in order to make sure that then generates more better outcomes. And we'll verify that with what the AI outcomes are saying.
But your prospective customers must be frozen, they must be paralyzed, deer in the headlights,
Yep.
because you're changing from the traditional user licensing,
Yep.
and you're also changing the workflows. There's too many variables. How do you get them past deer in the headlights?
So two points there, first of all. So, we, as I mentioned, in terms of the migration approach, we support many different kinds of approaches, and we have customers that do different things. But we'll make a recommendation to a customer. They may say, yeah, love it, I'm going to go that way. They may say, I want to do this anyway. So we'll guide them through any method. And that can be very, very fast. It can be very, very phased migrations as well. And it's our job. And we have specialized people in our value realization services organization. Their job is to manage that.
Must be a lot of people, 1,000 implementations
Yeah,
a year.
Absolutely.
Okay, globally, you're in
every year, but 3 a day. Yeah.
Okay, 3 a day.
But then you also mentioned pricing. And clearly we're in a stage right now where we will be moving from a pricing model that's been predominantly user-based,
right,
to one that we're going to see less users and maybe different kinds of users and more transactions and more automation. And so we're creating a model, and if you look at the pricing of Empower Ultimate, it's on our website.
Right.
Very, very simple. There's a per agent pricing that covers that, and then there's a per session pricing, which can be for augmented intelligence or automated intelligence, which is the same. And customers will pay like a minimum commit, and both of those.
So then you pay twice. If you start with a machine and then escalate to a human, you pay twice.
Or you can, you pay once, okay, because a session is defined as an interaction between the organization and that consumer within a 24-hour period.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if they're talking to an AI bot or a human using AI, it still counts as one. But we make it very, very simple for our customers to actually migrate from a highly human-intensive scenario to one where it's less human-intensive and more automated. They get the benefit of that, and we get the benefit of that. So it's a real win-win for both us and the vendor, which creates a sustainable, enterprise software relationship, which means we're going to grow together.
So I want to wrap up with this last question here. That when you're changing the workflow and you're using AI to help identify that workflow, that requires a lot of data. How do you get to that point before you've implemented?
Yeah, so data comes from two places. First of all, we have out-of-the-box AI models, which are trained on real data that's been anonymized, so we don't know where it came from, but over 20 years of experience and billions of interactions, we've built these 1,000 different models, and they come out the box in there, and those models know what's good. They know what's good for CSAT, they know what's good for first call, first contact resolution, etc., etc. They know those things. So secondly, when we do a customer implementation, one of the first things that happens is that customer's historical data comes onto the platform. And it's a simple interaction of those pre-built models against that customer data that's going to say, okay, this customer's maybe not good, for example, containment. Actually, these types of interactions are going to agents, and actually they should be 78% of the time, 85% of the time being contained because they're pretty simple, and here's how to contain them. It's one example. I'll give you many examples of those. So really, the solution is the coming together of those out-of-the-box models trained on billions of historical interactions, anonymized, with a customer-specific data, effectively benchmarking it and allowing us the system to implement that.
All right, well, we can keep on going, but I have to get back in to hear the customer panel. So we'll wrap this up.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. It's great. Thanks, everyone.